Hey guys, I'm Jax, and this is my spoiler-free review for the new film Nezha 2, which is a Chinese action-adventure fantasy animated film. This film was so below my radar, I literally didn't know it existed until a week ago, when a mate of mine was like, hey, have you heard about this film that's gonna literally become the highest grossing animated film of all time, and it's probably like on track right now to become the highest grossing film ever? As of recording, this film has made $1.7 billion. And so obviously, this piqued my interest. I was like, I gotta go check out this little indie darling right now in cinemas, because it needs my support. I went to see this movie. Within about 5 minutes, I was quite charmed and smitten with this movie. And then about 20 minutes in, I suddenly realized I was not emotionally or physically ready for what was about to happen. Quite simply put, if we exclude Shrek 2, this is the single greatest animated film ever made. This is the most surprising, overwhelmingly exciting cinema experience I have had in years. This is the type of film that reminds me of why I love storytelling and particularly filmmaking. The score is so majestic and beautiful. The visuals are awe-inspiring. The lore and the world building is so exciting and unique. And it's so funny and cool and just awesome. So much of this film, I was just like looking at the screen in utter disbelief. The amount of times that something would just happen, like 3 to 4 times in every single scene in this movie, I would just be like, what? What? Like, I have seen so many films over so many years, but it is a special type of film that reminds you of the limitless potential of storytelling. And I particularly do love the things and the genres in this film. I love fantasy, I love magic, I love superheroes, and this film is very action heavy, adventure heavy. There's a bunch of magical, mystical, spiritual stuff going on. And so if you love that kind of stuff, this film is for you. If you don't really kind of go for that kind of stuff, usually I think this film does enough new, fresh things that'll make you appreciate those genres even if they're not your favorite. I absolutely love seeing superheroes and magic and fantasy stuff play out in live action. I really, really, truly do. But sometimes and often, the budget or just the technical aspects of filmmaking, like the CGI or just practical elements that do have a limits the creativity. Whereas this type of film, this type of animated film reminds you that when you're doing animation, the limit is your, oh my God, this is ridiculously cheesy and cliche, but the limit is your imagination and your creativity. And apparently, according to this guy, this director who made this film, that limit doesn't exist. Limitless potential and possibilities. And I was just so impressed by the absolutely bafflingly, excitingly fresh and cool and unique ways that they would do things I've seen a million times before. Like, there were so many moments in this film where something would happen, and I'd be like, yeah, I've kind of seen, like, this thing play out before. And then within 5 seconds, I'm like, what? Never like that! And then it would just keep topping itself and topping itself. This film has such a flow and a momentum and a kinetic energy that is just so infectious to your soul. I've never watched a film in a cinema and wanted to stand up out of my seat and just cheer and hoot and holler like I'm watching a sports game. It was crazy. It has such a fiery, exciting energy to it that is just electric. And there's a scene very early on that's like maybe 20 minutes in where I was like, oh, the kinetic energy and movement and flow and just the action in this scene is so vibrantly colorful. Everything is contrasted perfectly. They're doing things with magic and powers that I've never seen before. And sometimes you'd be like, oh, I have seen that before. Oh, but not done like this. And it was just doing so much that when the scene ended, I was like, oh, I can't believe the movie peaked so early. Oh, brother. It's the worst scene in the movie. That's how good this movie is. I'm speechless. I'm literally speechless. That being said, since this is a review in which I speak, I will keep speaking. This film just does everything you could possibly want in a story. heart and emotion for days, rich, interesting and unique world building and lore, insanely funny comedy that somehow contrasts the very dark and intense yet fun action adventure tone with crazy, shockingly juvenile yet well done slapstick kiddie kind of humor. The amount of fart and pee jokes that were actually funny were baffling, but honestly baffling. I don't think I've ever laughed so much at a pee joke in my entire life. Truly astounding stuff. Honestly, the comedy felt like someone watched an Adam Sandler film and then went, what if we made that actually funny? I don't know how that happened. Maybe I've gone insane. The action and the fighting in this film utilize and weaponize the magic and the fantasy and the unique different kind of creatures and magical kind of ideas and designs at play in such interesting and cool ways. I actually can't think of another film that does it in anywhere near as close. Somehow Puss in Boots: The Last Wish is maybe the only thing that comes to mind. Spider-Verse is also pretty close, but honestly, I feel like I just love Spider-Man so much that I'm like, I don't even know if I can count that, because if I take away Spider-Man, how impressed am I? Pretty impressed. But compared to this film, not impressed at all. Honestly, I think having seen this film, I now understand why Spider-Verse 3 has been delayed for another 5 years. Someone on that production team probably watched this movie early and went, whoa, our baby trash animation needs to level up. Otherwise, we're just going to embarrass ourselves. And they will. I'm kidding. I love Spider-Verse and Spider-Verse 2. I'm just trying to make a point of how good this movie looks. In summary of the visuals, it looks good. And I went, wow, that really does look very good. There's just such a richness, I don't know if it's to the textures, and just it felt so unique and fresh, and it felt like it had leveled up animation to this point that I've never seen it before. Like, it made me go, wow, I remember when Toy Story 4 to Toy Story 1, you look at stills side by side of the dog and the cat, and you're like, wow, we've come a long way. Well, that cat now looks like garbage. Throw it in the bin. Pixar and Disney and generally Hollywood in general. They are in for a rude awakening when they see this film. Because they're going to be like, wow, we can't even do that when we crush all our animators and force them to work overtime for free. How are we going to do this? I don't know. And now I've brought that up, I feel like maybe I've unintentionally opened a can of worms that I don't want to be opening because I don't know about the working conditions for this film. And now, having said that and thought about it and thinking about how good this looks, probably nothing good. And I know what some of you were saying. Sounds like you just love things punching on and action and visuals, and you're just like, oh, that thing's very, very colorful and nice. You're like a child. What about the emotion? What about the story? What about the characters? Calm down. They were also all pretty good. And by pretty good, I do mean sensational and overwhelming. This film is packed to the brim with heart. It is a beautiful story about friendship and the struggle against evil. Classic fantasy action adventure stuff. But it is also, and to be fair, this might be me overanalyzing the film, but if you just scratch the surface of the fantasy elements just a little bit, you find a lot going on in this film. It is extremely pro-gay, anti-racism, anti-government, anti-formed groups of religion, but very pro-spiritual. It's got a lot going on. But if you just want to watch a fun action-adventure fantasy film that's about two guys teaming up and leveling up so that they can punch demons and dragons in the face, it's also that. So the plot of this film revolves around Nezha, and he has to team up with his friend Ao Bing. I might be missaying all of their names, I do apologize. And they have to team up, and one of their spirits goes into the other one, and they have to do a bunch of trials to get back this elixir to do some things for plots and essentially to fight some dragons and maybe some other demon creatures that are kind of hybrid human animal creature demon monsters. And it's all a bit of fun, and everyone's screaming nonsense, insane things about magic and power and all that stuff. It's all nonsense and utterly delightful. I'm not really going to get into the nitty-gritty of the plot or any of that kind of stuff because I don't really want to spoil anything, because having not known anything about this film, just super exciting, going on the journey completely fresh. So I highly recommend you do that. But just on the plot and the story, I loved it. It does so many things we've seen before, but it brings enough really interesting kind of ideas to the table that it's not just new brilliant visuals and great action. The emotional heart and core theme of the story is so very good. The main two characters have such a great journey together, and there's a lot that's hinted at that I feel like you could be like, they're just best buddies. And if you want to look at it a different way, maybe they're more than that. And the plot takes some really interesting kind of turns in the back half. It kind of sets up like, this is what we're doing, and we have to do 3 trials to get a thingamajiggy. But then it kind of takes this really interesting and surprisingly kind of dark turn. And I won't spoil anything here, obviously, but I feel like every twist, turn, reveal, or revelation was really clever and exciting and compelling, and it kind of propelled the story forward with such momentum that you never really felt the 2.5 hours. Like, it is a long film. And, you know, if you don't really like this type of film and you don't like the big, epic, grand stories, it might kind of drag a little bit for you. But I think for me, personally, these epic, grand stories that kind of traverse different lands and do so much, kind of, they deserve to be told in this long form, so that moments, like little fun moments and little character beats here, and all of this big world building doesn't get like thrown to the wayside because they have to race to the finish line to get it under 2 hours. Another thing this film does incredibly well is that it does so much lore and world building, but you never feel exhausted and overwhelmed by it because it's just so fascinating and interesting. And there's never a frame where you're like, this is such an ugly, boring scene, and they're just reading Wikipedia pages of nonsense lore that doesn't make any sense. You're always just like, no, tell me more, feed me more. I want to eat this lore up. I just want to gobble all of this lore and world building up so much. It's so fascinating and cool and interesting. I want to have it for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And guess what I want to have for dessert? More lore and world building. Please, sir, can I have some more lore and world building? Because it's so damn tasty. I was in a constant state of awe and wonder and just shock of utter disbelief at what I was watching. There were just tears in my eyes of just gleeful joy throughout this entire film. Some of the action, I keep just saying the action's real good, but I cannot stress enough. It's just so good. I feel like when you say, oh, it was breathtaking, you're like, wow, that must have been pretty good. What's like the thing above breathtaking? It's so breathtaking, it makes everything else that's breathtaking look like shit. And I'm not even trying to throw shade. I'm just trying to create some kind of divide so you understand how good it is. Am I overhyping this just a little bit too much? Of course I am. Or am I? I probably am. I probably am hyping it just a little, just a smidge too much. Another thing this film does that I feel like so many action films kind of forget to do, and it becomes a bunch of sound and noise and just like a lot's happening, but you kind of can't connect and focus on it all, is that like the weight of a punch, or a magical fireball being thrown and hurled at somebody, or a giant ice sword of doom smashing someone in the face, like the weight of the punches are felt and are so earned, and they feel so powerful because of every moment building up to the connection. And it does that just so expertly throughout the entire film that you're never kind of like, oh god, another scene with giant dragons flying about and this guy who does a magical fire fist and hits them. Oh, I've seen it before. Like, they just do something different and new and cool, and every single time that impact is so powerful. It's a good movie. I don't know if you like got that from the way I've been talking. I feel like maybe I haven't like expressed my words properly, but I think it's a very good movie. In conclusion, this is a must-see in the cinema. This film's gonna make you laugh, cry, and cheer, and just, it's gonna make you love the movies. I highly recommend it. I'm giving it 5 stars. Since I knew nothing and I had no expectations going in, I was overwhelmingly delighted. And now that I've put too much expectation on the film, I think maybe you're all gonna be like, pretty good. Not as good as that crazy guy on YouTube said it was. I guess he's just lost his mind. Thanks for watching, guys, and if you like this video and you want to see more, like, subscribe, all the YouTubey things, and comment below. I would love to know, what did you think of Nezha 2? And if you haven't seen it yet, go see it, because this little indie darling needs your money.